Hello, and welcome to the Dungeon. I'm your host, Rob. In today's video, we're going to be looking at some Barbarian Fighter multi-class ideas. And yeah, this isn't going to be the most original of ideas. Obviously, Barbarian and Fighter pair very well. But I haven't done Barbarian in a while, so I just wanted to make a multi-class Barbarian video. And we're probably going to look at Barbarian Rogue in the near future as well. I think the only video I've done for Barbarian multi-class was with Warlock. And the basic idea for anybody who didn't see that video, was that we went mostly Warlock. We just went Barbarian for reckless attack, essentially, and for like Constitution saving throws. And the fact that I couldn't cast or concentrate on spells while raging didn't really matter because I went Pact to the Blade. I got my extra attack from Pact to the Blade Warlock, and I took Eldritch Smite from Pact to the Blade Warlock. So instead of casting spells or trying to not be able to cast spells because I'm raging, I could just use those spell slots as smites whenever I wanted. And then, because I had reckless attack, this added a lot of offensive power to the warlock. But it also gave me the ability to take a lot of like out of combat utility type things that a barbarian wouldn't normally be able to get. Barbarians tend to be a little weak outside of combat. And I'm not saying they don't have any good abilities, they do have some, depending on which subclass you took. You might even have a lot. But in general, barbarians really excel at combat and tend to be weaker in, like, say, the social pillar. Although that shouldn't stop you from trying. Just ask my friend Jaden, this barbarian Crag, who was terrible at charisma, but didn't stop him from constantly trying and getting the party into all sorts of difficulty, usually because of it. I also think that one of the real strengths of this mix is that you can really take almost any subclass from either one and make it work. And in fact, I would even say that while some are clearly stronger or better than others, if I had like an idea for I wanted to go like with an Echo Knight, or I wanted to, do this or that and maybe combine it with this type of barbarian, I personally, at least, have almost always regretted it when I decided to take like a mechanics choice over a roleplay choice. Always go with whatever you think the fun choice is going to be. If you had a clear idea for this character, and then you're like, but I think this other one might do a little more damage, you're probably going to have more fun going with the roleplay choice. At least I usually do. And that's something I've found. And it's a mistake I've made several times, it just happens. The lure of doing that extra couple points of damage around can sometimes pull us away from our original character concept. But then when we're 14th level and we realize that we're still only doing a couple extra damage around, but the monster we're fighting has 400 hit points, we start realizing how futile an extra 2 or 3 damage around really is, or even 2 or 3 damage a hit. And think, man, maybe I should have just gone with that core concept I originally had, because that guy probably would have been a lot of fun. And by the way, I usually prefer to play casters. I like a lot of strategic choices. But I have to say that some of the funnest characters I've seen so far in 5th edition from my own table games. One was a champion fighter that I played who was just, that guy was awesome. I loved him. Everybody at the table loved him. He was just ridiculous, and he just did a ton of damage. And then 2 of the other funnest I've seen were my friend Jaden played a barbarian in my last campaign that I ran, named Crag. And Crag, I know as the DM you shouldn't play favorites, it's like being a parent, but Crag was my favorite. I know that's probably not even a spoiler, because everybody in that campaign probably already knew that. I loved Crag. That guy was just, he was so amazing. And then in a different campaign I was in, my favorite character in that campaign also was not my character. It was my friend Troy's barbarian named Lucian. And I really think there's something to this idea that when you don't have a lot of distractions, like what spell am I going to use? What strategic choice am I going to make? When your only strategic choice is, do I hit him with the great sword or the great axe? It leaves you with a lot of potential roleplay opportunities, because your mind starts thinking of just how can I make this scene as just ludicrous and fun and just over the top as possible. Because you're not worried about, do I cast this spell or this spell or this spell, or how many spell slots do I even have left, And by the way, like I said, I love casters. That's not a complaint about them. But sometimes it's just fun to be that dumb idiot who just charges in every time and then just smacks stuff with lots of dice. And that may sound stupid, but I've never played at a gaming table where people didn't get excited when one of the players rolled a critical hit, even when it wasn't them. And, if you're attacking recklessly and maybe you've got some champion fighter levels as well, and you're critting on a 19 or 20 while attacking with advantage permanently, you're going to get a lot of crits. And maybe even some brutal criticals because you're a barbarian and you're just going to roll a truckload of dice. And that kind of stuff can be a lot of fun. So anyways, that's just all a giant detour from the video. I do think that, obviously, like I said, some subclasses are going to be better or weaker, right? Like Eldritch Knight could definitely work, but because you can't cast or maintain concentration on spells while raging, Eldritch might not be your strongest pick. But that doesn't mean you couldn't do it. You can pick up things like Find Familiar, and that could help to increase a lot of like scouting options for your character. And especially if you went heavy on the fighter, you might only have a couple of rages a day, in which case the fact that you can't cast or concentrate on spells while raging might not matter, because you're like, you know what, I'm going to save my rages for like the big boss fight, but everything else I'm going to be casting spells here and there, so it could work. I'm not saying it's the strongest choice, but I think a lot of times we overthink this kind of stuff, and it doesn't have to be a bad pick either, right? That all being said, though, I really like the new Rune Knight. I think it's pretty strong, especially when I'm going higher fighter levels. I think that one really works well. I love the champion fighter in this mix, just because getting lots of crits is great on a barbarian. And I think the champion fighter is one that can work with either lots of fighter or lots of barbarian. I think that one works either way. So I like that mix a lot. And then I also like the Battle Master. And the main reason is, I think that, like I said, the subclass is less important for this build, I think. The main thing is going to be feat choices. So if I'm in a campaign that doesn't allow feats, I'm not saying this character wouldn't be good. I'm just saying that you're not really going to be able to reach your full potential. I'm definitely wanting to play this character in a campaign that allows feats. And the main feats I'm looking to take, my number one priority is probably Great Weapon Master, and the number two is probably Polearm Master, if I wanted to play Polearm. Maybe I don't. Maybe I just want to use a Greatsword or a Great Axe, and I just have this image in my head of what this character is going to be. But Polearm Master is also very good. But my number one priority is going to be Great Weapon Master. And the main reason is because of Reckless Attack. Now, Great Weapon Master, Sharpshooter, these kind of feats are really, really good at boosting up your damage. But they can also cause you to miss a lot. And when you miss by like 1 or 2 because you activated Great Weapon Master, and you now, instead of doing a bunch of damage, you did no damage, you're like, ugh, and it just kind of sucks. But because of Reckless Attack and attacking with advantage anytime we want, that really allows us to really overcome that weakness. So I really like that a lot. Also, especially if I went champion and I decided to make a Crit Fisher build, right? So maybe I'm taking my Reckless Attack from Barbarian. I've got double crit chance, potentially even triple crit chance at high levels, but probably just double for most campaigns on the Barbarian. And maybe I went half orc, which of course has great stats for this kind of build. And now I've got that half orc racial where I get an extra damage added to all my crits. And Great Weapon Mastery is going to work really well on this, because when you get a critical hit, you can also use your bonus action to make an extra attack. So assuming I didn't have to activate Rage this round, it means that anytime I get a crit, and I'm critting on a 19 or 20, and I'm attacking with advantage, I can also make an extra attack, which is awesome. And just as a general rule, when I'm playing a melee character especially, like any character in general, I want to have as much action economy as possible, right? But especially on a melee character, I want to usually try to find ways to get, like, what am I going to be doing with a bonus action? What am I going to be doing with a reaction? Like, if you take the example of, let's say, a fighter at level 6, right? So we won't talk any multiclassing for a second here. But let's say you're a level 6 fighter, and you decide to take +2 strength at level 4, and then your level 6 choice, you took another +2 strength. So you have 20 strength. You're probably going to be doing less damage than a fighter who took Polearm Mastery and Great Weapon Mastery at 4 and 6 instead. And yeah, that's not always going to be true, because the guy with the Polearm and Great Weapon Mastery could miss more, right? But let's say you went Battle Master and you took Precision Attack to now help you land those big hits and help to compensate for that -5 penalty. The guy who took the strength increases is making 2 attacks around, assuming he doesn't action surge. But they can both action surge, so that's a wash. But you're making 2 attacks around. But the guy with polar mastery is making those same 2 attacks around, but also has the option of making a polearm bonus action attack anytime he wants. And maybe he has something else to do with this bonus action that turn. That's fine. But it means that anytime you didn't have something else to do, you could be attacking again. So you have 3 attacks around essentially anytime you want. But it doesn't even end there, because you also get a reaction attack when somebody enters your range for the first time, which of course is 10 feet because you're using a polearm. So when somebody comes within 10 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make an attack. And yeah, that's not going to be happening every round, right? But it might happen once or twice per combat, and that's still not too bad. If your fight lasts, let's say 4 or 5 rounds, and you had 2 opportunities to use that, that's like an extra round of attack for the other guy, basically. And so you could easily have that same fighter who, instead of attacking twice a round, is attacking 3 times a round consistently, and potentially 4 times a round sometimes. And, that's just from polearm mastery. And then, you add in great weapon mastery, and now you're doing, like, even if you missed one of those attacks because of great weapon mastery, the -5 penalty, just the fact that you hit on 2 or 3 other attacks, that's like 20 or 30 bonus damage. And on a level 6 fighter, that is huge. So, do not sleep on feat picks if you can make them. I think that a third strong choice, but not as strong as the first 2, but a third strong choice is Sentinel. Again, because it gives us a potential of a reaction attack. And combined with Polearm Master, it's very, very strong, because now you can make an opportunity attack with Polearm Mastery. And if you hit with an opportunity attack from Sentinel, you lock them down, the movement gets reduced to 0, and now, if they had a 5-foot range, they'll start 10 feet away. They can't even melee anybody. So Sentinel is also a very good pick, but we are multi-classing, and we're already looking at a couple feat choices. You're probably going to want to max strength at some point, so that can be a little hard to fit in. But, I said half orc is a really strong choice here. Variant human is a very strong choice, just because we could start with one of these feats, And, you could have that same character who now by level 6 fighter has all 3 of those feats, because you started with 1, you took the other 2 at 4 and 6, and then maybe you multi-class and grab some barbarian levels, and now you're recklessly attacking anytime you want. You're making 2 attacks around consistently. You're applying like big damage bonuses. You've got your polearm attack when you need it. You've got a reaction attack when you need it. I mean, it's pretty staggering the amount of damage that this character can be pumping out. And at this point, you're like 8th level. Like, that is a crazy amount of damage. Oh, by the way, another thing I should mention, even though we're just talking about how much damage we're trying to make a big bruising damage dealing character, try not to overshadow everybody else in your party. If your poor rogue is doing like 20 damage a round and your guy's doing 40 a round, it might make him feel bad about playing this character. That is one problem I find a lot of times optimizers, and by the way, I consider myself an optimizer, so it's something I have to constantly be self-aware of if I can, is that we tend to be more involved in what we're thinking for our own character and less concerned about how everybody else at the table feels. And that's something I've had to work on a lot over the years, so try not to overshine everybody else and overshadow and outshine. There we go. I got that all completely backwards, but that's okay. So anyways, as for the Barbarian subclasses, since we already talked about some of the best fighter ones, by the way, Battle Master was on that list. I don't know if I specifically mentioned it. I mentioned Precision Attack, but I don't know if I mentioned Battle Master as being one of my strong picks for this. I think Champion better for the Crit Fisher route if I'm just looking to do a lot. And I think the strength of the Champion in this particular mix is that I could have a lot of Barbarian levels and then just take like 3 or 4 levels of Fighter just to double my crit chance, and then I'm landing huge brutal criticals too. But I could also go tons of Champion and just take 2 levels of Barbarian and just, now I'm taking that core component of the Champion, which is getting more crits, and I'm getting better at that in a different way that's not conflicting at all with the Champion way, So I think that's really strong. I think Battle Master really shines probably with more Battle Master levels, especially. Just so we have like, more superior or more superiority die and stuff like that. A few more maneuvers. But you could go either way too. I just think that I'm probably favoring more fighter levels in that particular mix, and probably with the Rune Knight as well. Like I said, as far as the Barbarian, a lot of them are pretty good. The ones that really stuck out the most, though, if I'm looking to just do as much damage as possible, Zealot is pretty good because they have that Divine Fury. So if I'm raging on one hit every round, I get to do an extra D6 it starts out as in either Radiant or Necrotic damage. I'm probably going to pick Radiant, by the way, because there's more undead types that are sometimes immune to Necrotic. But either way, both damage types are good. They're fairly low on the number of creatures that resist them or are immune. And as a way of pumping out more damage is pretty good. Plus, I think the Zealot has some pretty nice abilities as well. Also, obviously, the Totem Warrior Barbarian. What could he say? Bear gives you like basically resistance against everything except psychic damage. And yeah, you're not going to do quite as much damage as the Zealot would do, but you're just so much beefier. I absolutely love Totem Warrior Barbarians. But you can also go with the Wolf Spirit and give advantage to other people. I think if I'm in a melee heavy group, like maybe there's my guy, and then there's like a Paladin, and then maybe there's like a rogue who's going to be using melee weapons instead of bows or ranged weapons, right? Giving everybody advantage can be really big, especially now the rogue doesn't have to worry about, he can just sneak attack basically anytime he's near me because he's got permanent advantage and he's going to be critting more. Like, that it gets pretty insane. So I think in that kind of comp, I might even favor the wolf, but usually it's pretty hard to go wrong with bear. Also, the Totem Spirit has some pretty good higher level abilities, and you do get a bit of out of combat stuff too. They have the potential to cast a few ritual type spells as you go, and they're not always the best or the most useful, but at least it gives you something you could potentially be doing outside of just smashing stuff with a polearm. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's the whole point of this video. Either way, though, I think those two are really good. I did want to mention, though, that I think that the Path of the Ancestral Guardian has some potential as well. And I just wanted to... We're probably less familiar with it for a lot of people because it came out in Xanatars, which has been out for a while now. But I do think it gets overshined by the Zealot, which is usually better of the paths from that particular book. And of course the Totem Warrior, which is just God tier Barbarian. It's true. It's so true. You get the Ancestral Protector's ability at level 3. Spectral warriors appear when you enter your rage. While you're raging, the first creature you hit with an attack on your turn becomes the target of the warriors, which hinder its attacks. Until the start of your next turn, the target has a disadvantage on any attack roll that isn't against you, and when the target hits a creature other than you with an attack, that creature has resistance to the damage dealt by the attack. The effect on the target ends early if your rage ends. Depending on how many levels of Barbarian I go, I might not pick up some of the other abilities, but like the level 6 ability isn't bad as well. The Guardian Spirits aid you, and if you're raging on another creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to reduce that damage by 2d6, and then it scales up as you level. And I think if I wanted to make like a more tanky defensive choice, but not like myself tanky, if I'm going to do that, I'm going with Bear, because, God tier Barbarian. But if I want to play a character who's looking more to protect my party members, I think this is a really strong choice. And, I think that one of the nice things about this particular subclass is that you're still going to be doing lots of damage. And this also gives you a bit more party utility. So depending on what role I'm looking to fit, I think any of those are pretty strong choices. But really, most of them work really, really well in my opinion. So anyways, that's pretty much my thoughts on the video. Other feat choices, like if I want lots of fighter, I might have lots of feats, right? Like let's say I only took 4 levels of Barbarian, for example, right? And I'm still getting a feat at 4 there. I'm getting fighter feats at, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 14, and 16. So, I've got a lot of feat choices there. 4, 6, 8, 12, 14, 16. Yeah, that's right. They get 7. Oh no, I think 14 I'm wrong on. That must be Rogue. Either way, whatever. It doesn't matter. Tons of feat choices. That's the main point there. Let's not get caught up in the details here. So you could potentially be picking up more feats on top of that. I think the alert feat is great for someone in this case. Just, getting even more initiative, allowing you to position yourself better. Always good. And just if we're looking to maximize our action economy, then, attacking earlier is usually going to be better than attacking late. Doesn't matter if you have 4 attacks around. If you're consistently attacking at initiatives 2, 3, 4, and 5, half the stuff's going to be dead before you even get into the fight. So alert's very helpful for dealing with that. Granted, if you went Barbarian, you might have advantage on your initiative rolls already. But then, having alert on top of that is just even more goodness. So I think that's potentially strong. But I wouldn't look to take it ahead of Great Weapon Mastery or Polearm Mastery. So anyways, those are my main thoughts on the video. I do think that if you want to play other races, like I mentioned specifically the Variant Human and the Half-Orc, both of those are great choices. But, there's nothing stopping you from playing any race that you want, especially these days. You can make a custom race. You could start with a feat if you wanted and make like your own variant race. The options are pretty much limitless these days. And even though I only specifically mentioned like a few subclasses for each, like I said, I think that there's a ton of potential picks here that'll work really well. So, just pick the ones that really appeal to you and, go with it. Maybe you decided that your guy should have a Beast Companion, and that Beast Companion is really your Eldritch Knight familiar, so you have a few minor spells that you can use. And, but you're mostly about hitting stuff with a great weapon. So, those spells are mostly just used out of combat when you're not raging. So, that could work fine. Nothing wrong with that. Pick the subclasses you want, go with that. Anyways, that's everything I got. I'm starting to ramble here. So feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. And of course, most importantly, like I always say, leave me your comments in the comments section. I love reading everybody's comments. I love seeing their build ideas. I love getting people to just talk about oh, I made a character that was kind of similar to this, only I went like this way instead, and it was really great. I love that kind of stuff. It gives me more ideas, or just, other things hey, people are like, oh, what do you think about this combo? And it's like, what do you think about Barbarian Paladin? And it's like, actually, that could be pretty good. You're not really concentrating on a lot of spells. You just use all your spell slots on smites. That could be really solid, So, I mean, there's so much knowledge in this community, and there's so many just creative people and creative ideas that, I love reading this kind of stuff. Anyways, that's everything, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.